With Chainsaw Man Chapter 207, the Asa and Denji shippers, they might have been tempted to say that love is in the air because at this point, even someone as cautiously optimistic as myself has to sit there and wonder if this might be where the story's heading, because Fujimoto's laying it on thick, barring some unpredictable, heartbreaking plot twist by Fujimoto or Reze popping back up into the story last minute to remind Denji who Best Girl is. So, Chainsaw Man Chapter 207, if I had to think of a way to just summarize it in one sentence, I would call this chapter the chapter of fear of being loved by someone when you feel unworthy. Tatsuki Fujimoto has never shied away from ugly, vulnerable corners of the human heart. Chapter 207, it is raw. It is a piercing continuation of that emotional descent, and it is ultimately a quiet, redemptive moment for Denji's long and tumultuous journey towards love. At the center of it all is the agonizing belief that he doesn't truly deserve love. The chapter itself, it begins where the last one left off. We have Denji in crisis. He's suspended in both air, literally and emotionally, as Mitaka's trying to calm him down. The stakes, they aren't just life and death. They're existential. Denji having lost someone like Makima who betrayed him, Power who died in front of him, Naruto who was killed and put on a plate in front of him, and having committed so many unmistakable, unforgivable, unspeakable acts as Chainsaw Man, it carries a crushing weight of guilt and self-loathing. In his own words, if he's bringing to others the same suffering that once shattered him, then any happiness that he might have wanted, it must have been forfeit. Denji doesn't view himself as being deserving. This mindset is the insecurity of the unlovable, the belief that one's scars, one's sins, and one's pain, they disqualify them from affection. And I personally understand where Denji's coming from. I've been that person. I am that person to a degree. It's a tragic worldview of Denji forged by his brutal upbringing, his manipulated relationships, and the sheer volume of emotional trauma that he's had to endure. From the outside, he is Chainsaw Man. He is violent. He is iconic. He is worship. But on the inside, Denji is just a boy who's been broken by love and by life too many times to believe that it could be real for him, that he truly deserves it. That's where Mitaka's words, they hit him with the force of a cannon. Mitaka doesn't argue with Denji's pain. She doesn't try to fix him. She doesn't try to pretend that she has all the answers. What she says is indeed more powerful. She says, I want to be the one who makes you happy. I don't know how, but we'll figure it out together. She is using future investment in Denji to try to show him that you can be loved and that I will be there for you. This confession, it is gentle, but it slices through Denji's despair like a blade. Mitaka offers not just affection, but a partnership in healing, a recognition that love isn't about perfection or purity, but it's about being present with someone in the mess. It's the first time in a long time that Denji is told without any strings attached, without any condition, that someone just wants to love him as he is. And then that's when Mitaka does it. She calls them superheroes. This one line encapsulates everything that Denji has always secretly believed about himself, even when the world and his own actions told him otherwise. In the earliest chapters of Chainsaw Man, Denji's deepest wish, in my opinion, wasn't to be a god or a devil or a killer. He kind of viewed himself like a hero. Chainsaw Man to him, it was never truly about power. It was about saving people, especially women, and maybe being loved for it. But that dream, it crumbled very slowly and subtly under the weight of bloodshed, betrayal, and loss. He even went a period of time where he was depressed because he couldn't be Chainsaw Man, and now you have the Falling Devil reminding him like, hey, the Justice Twins, they really loved you, man. They treated you like a hero, and what'd you do? You let them die. Denji, in this moment, his self-image as a hero, it became a bitter joke because of what the Falling Devil did. So when Mitaka, who knows Denji's darkness and his complexity, says that they need to stop the Falling Devil because we're heroes, what she's telling him is, I see you for who you truly are, and I still believe in you. It's in this moment that it's a moment of understanding that is so sincere, beautiful writing too, and that it symbolically brings tears to Denji's eyes. Literally, he's not crying, but this is a symbolic bit of prose that I'm doing here. He doesn't even get to respond in this moment because just as he's being pulled back to his senses, Yoru, the war devil, she forcibly takes control. Her entrance is a narrative reminder of how trauma and violence, it constantly disrupts the intimacy and the healing in Denji's life. It's like that meme, suffer, learn from suffering, suffer some more, and etc. that everyone uses with Denji's character. It's also interesting because it sets up a couple of dynamics here. Right after Yoru hears Mitaka call them heroes, she immediately takes over and behaves in a way that you would expect from a villain, which is a brilliant contrast to the light and darkness of Mitaka and Yoru as a dynamic. The other thing, arguably, is if you're someone who ships Yoru and Denji, I know some of you guys are, you might find yourself thinking this was jealousy popping out in a way that is more destructive. Like, I'll be the one who saves Denji, and that's what makes her transformation of her arm into the tank so important. While she's saving Denji, she's also inflicting pain on him due to the sheer weight of the weapon physically dragging him down while the falling devil is attempting to lift him up. There are two devils on either side, basically pulling from both ends when you think about it. But her tank cannon is absolutely overloaded with every weapon that Mitaka created, and it also represents the culmination of their shared willpower, a metaphor for combining the burdens of the past in an attempt to destroy a shared enemy, which, spoiler alert, obviously they don't destroy the falling devil. She's eating all the attacks. In a way, the falling devil is being used as a binding agent to bring them in all closer together, which makes for brilliant writing when you think of it that way. What's also interesting here is her decision to call herself and Denji, two people who both have crossed moral lines, superheroes. It appeals to the childish boyhood innocence of Denji that there is still, well, a spark of humanity that is still inside of Mitaka, despite everything that she's been through. And yet the term superhero, when you think about it, you think of people like Captain America or Superman, and not necessarily people like Denji and Mitaka. And that's where the beauty in this moment truly lies when you look at it from a different perspective. What is a hero? What is a superhero? A hero, in classic terms, at the most basic level, is someone who performs acts of courage or selflessness for the sake of others. A superhero, culturally, is often a figure with powers who rises above the average person to fight for justice. But in Chainsaw Man, Fujimoto just flips the script. The superheroes of this world, they aren't wearing capes. They're dragging themselves through the emotional muck of guilt and grief and trauma, and they're choosing to still do good in spite of all of that. Mitaka calling them superheroes isn't just about stopping the falling devil. It's about reclaiming agency. It's about saying we are not defined by the worst things that we've done. You and I both have done terrible things. We can still choose to protect others. We can still choose to stand up against evil, even when we don't feel worthy of love ourselves. In Fujimoto's worlds, skyscrapers that are being left over, they aren't physical. They're emotional. They're moral obstacles, guilt, shame, regret, loneliness. It's easy to romanticize superheroes who punch monsters or they fly through the sky. What's harder and what Chainsaw Man is highlighting is facing yourself, choosing to fight when you believe you're beyond redemption, choosing to stand beside someone when you don't even know how to love yourself. Mitaka's words, they land precisely because she isn't pure. She's morally compromised. She's not some shining symbol of justice, but that's the point. She is the only kind of person who could reach Denji because she's just like him. Her line in this moment is an act of radical empathy, and through her, Fujimoto is subtly teaching us heroism isn't about being clean. It's about making the hard choice again and again to care even when it hurts, to care for others, especially when they're hurting themselves in the way that Denji is. It is a new definition of a superhero. By placing this scene in the middle of a combat and emotional collapse, Fujimoto is reframing what it means to be a superhero entirely. In this universe, it's okay to cry. It's okay to kill. It's okay to get used. It's okay to lose hope. It's okay to want to disappear like Denji's doing currently. That is why she had to reach out. That is why she had to protect someone like Denji. That is why she, despite how illogical it was, she had to try. That is what makes Mitaka and Denji's bond so quietly profound. They don't romanticize each other. They see the blood, the scars, the selfishness, and they still say, let's try to be happy together. In the way that you look at what Mitaka is saying to Denji. In a world where devils are born from fear, where morality is a shifting battlefield, where love at times can be weaponized, this act of vulnerability is the ultimate rebellion. And it's not just being a superhero. That's being a human at its highest level. Powers or no powers. And that's what the other half of the chapter, not just the emotional healing, but how the shared trauma can forge a connection. Denji and Mitaka are both broken in different ways. They're possessed by devils. In the case of Denji, he's got Pochita inside of him, and Yoru is deep inside of Mitaka. Denji and Mitaka, in so many ways, are walking very thin lines where they could very easily fall into the abyss. Yet in each other, they're slowly finding not just companionship, but also a mirror. Someone else who's felt unloved, someone else who's wanted to despair, someone else who's wanted to disappear, someone else who's lived in despair, and someone who still fights anyway. By the end of the chapter, the falling devil is completely impaled with weapons, may or may not be defeated, but ending the chapter in this way is brilliant imagery, because even if the falling devil comes out unscathed, which I think she will, this final panel just gives you a symbolic victory over the emotional descent that the falling devil represented. But the real triumph also lies in what preceded it. A conversation in midair between two souls who are terrified, scared, and still choosing somehow to reach for each other. Chapter 207, in my opinion, it is a masterclass in emotional storytelling disguised as a horror action manga. It doesn't offer easy solutions or cheesy declarations. Instead, it gives us something real. A boy who believes he doesn't deserve happiness, and a girl who's brave enough to tell him that he does. Not because he's perfect, but because no one is. And love isn't about deserving. It's about choosing. It's about being accepted. And for the first time in a very long time, Denji might start to believe that he can be chosen. Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and clicking here on the left to check out more videos from the Chainsaw Man playlist, or click here to check out other videos from the Anime Explained channel.